to all of you. A very warm and a hearty welcome for the second session of the first day National Education Conclave 2021, co-sponsored by Samunnati. We also welcome you for the launch of Heartful Campus, an initiative organized and launched by Heartfulness Institute and Heartfulness Education Trust to promote and reimagine the heart-centered approach towards the university education. Our endeavor is to promote holistic education and well-being of all individuals through simple meditative practices, relaxation technique, and rejuvenation system. Taking this thought forward, I would like to introduce the topic of discussion for our fourth session today, that is nurturing emotional intelligence and life skills in the universities. Our education system is proficient enough to nurture the minds of students, but is it good enough to nurture their hearts? Let's look at it. We have taught our youth how to earn living, but now let us teach them how to live. On this note, I would like to welcome and introduce to all of you one of the most eminent personalities in the field of skill development in India, that is a very well-known name, Dr. Manish Kumar. Dr. Manish Kumar, sir, is the Managing Director and the Chief Executive Officer of National Skill Development Corporation of India. Dr. Kumar has earlier served at All India Administrative Services, occupying many responsible positions. He was working as a country coordinator and senior institution development economist for the World Bank. He was task team leader for USD 1.5 billion loan to India for Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Manish Kumar all the way from Delhi.
It's a great pleasure to be part of this National Education Conclave, and I'm grateful for the Heartfulness Trust to be inviting me to have a discussion today on the emotional intelligence and life skills in higher education. When we talk of skills, normally skills are divided into three parts, what we call the cognitive skills, the non-cognitive skills, and the technical skills. The first one, the cognitive skills, is what we learn in schools and colleges. This is about solving problems, things that we do to get into IITs, and then we are into IITs and solving problems all the time, and the rest of our life, that's what we utilize for resolving problems in whatever jobs that we might be in. So that's the cognitive part. The non-cognitive part is essentially what is called the soft skills, and if you think carefully, this is not something which is taught to you in a very structured way. It's something which you acquire generally over time by dealing with your family, being advised by your parents, by dealing with your friends, in sports fields, and outside classes. That's where you learn a lot of your soft skills. And then finally we have what we call the technical skills. These are things which are of repetitive nature, things which we keep doing, and then it causes an impression in our mind, and eventually we become so capable in that it's almost like subconscious into us, and we can repeat that particular task as though it is our second nature. So therefore skills, as I said, is in these three parts. And as I mentioned, the one which we neglect the most is the non-cognitive part, which actually has within it the soft skills, also the emotional intelligence and the life skills packed into it. The life skills because it helps you negotiate your life, and the emotional intelligence because it's different from your mental capacity, your mental intelligence, that your knowledge that you pick up from books. This is something which you You learn by both understanding your emotion as well as emotion of someone else, and these are a very, very integral part of soft skills. Now, the reason why I highlight this particular aspect of skills is because there are studies which show that nearly one third of wages that a person earns is actually explained by the soft skills. And it's surprising that though it explains one third of our wages, we don't have very structured way of delivering it. I don't think so. We have it yet in a deep way as we might have it for problem solving. That's the cognitive skill part, where we have a whole range of schools and colleges and universities, and also on the vocational side, where you have vocational education institutions teaching you varieties of skills, and of course apprenticeship and various kind of trainings that you have when you are in a particular job. So both of them at the ends actually are structured. One in the middle is not really structured, and therefore the need that we pay more attention to it. A few things which I want to highlight here is when it comes to the non-cognitive part, your emotional intelligence and your life skills. A deep understanding of this is quite important for even taking up a profession. We have found in National Skill, NSDC, National Skill Development Corporation, that many people whom we have skilled join jobs that are related to healthcare, whereas they don't really have the emotional capacity for that particular job. What happens to the students normally we have found is they are joining because they feel that they're going to get paid more in healthcare job roles, and therefore they get themselves trained. But when they go to a hospital, when they're dealing with a patient out there, an old man who might be finding an illness very difficult to deal with, they just lack the empathy level that is necessary for them to be assisting the individual, and they very quickly desert their jobs. Now, what's happening here essentially? What's happening is that the individual did not have the empathy level that is needed for joining that particular job. Different job requires different ability. If it is healthcare related, you require extremely high empathy level. If it is related to sales, then you must have high communication ability and high ability to relate to others and convince others, the ability to persuade others. And therefore, when you make a job choice, it's very important to be aware of what is your basic nature in that sense. What is that life skill which already exists in you in sufficient quantum that you pick it up and therefore you capitalize on it and then make a good profession out of it. Something that we need to do through psychometric test. We now in counseling use them to advise students. Eventually it's their call, but then we at least let them know that given your basic nature, these are the type of jobs that you could succeed in. The others you might find a little difficult. Not that you can't do them, but it requires harder work for you. And I think the awareness in that individual that he or she would have to work harder if they were taking jobs that are contrary to the basic nature. Our nature, of course, changes. It's not something which remains static all the life. So it doesn't mean that you can't do a job. You could, but there are other jobs which you can do better at that given point of time. And therefore, the selection becomes easier when you know yourself. In the long term, I also feel that the emotional intelligence part is very important. It's important because as the digital world is changing the way we live, and we find so many of things are being given away to artificial intelligence, are coming into the ambit of data science, robotic processing. A lot of repetitive tasks will actually get away, and jobs will actually vanish from them. You'll find that a lot of things that are related to problem solving can be done by computers. Now we have calculators that do computations which 50 years back people would still do manually, and the changes will keep going. Another 50 years there would be far much more powerful tools through which people will be solving problems. But what will not be taken over by the computers, despite all the efforts, would be the emotional intelligence and the life skills. The reason why that will not be taken over completely, they could partially be taken over, but not fully, and would be the least impacted because of the AI that's coming in, and the data science that's coming in, the machine learning that's coming in, and the robotic process outsourcing that's coming in. The reason why this will not happen is because, firstly, human emotions, would keep changing, and there would be no set standards. It's not like 2 + 2 is 4. There is a kind of standardization out there, and there is always a standardization through which you also do work, which can be copied by robotics. But in the case of emotional intelligence, there is nothing which is static. It's constantly changing. It's constantly evolving, and human thoughts, human emotions, they are constantly, I think, moving in different levels. And for any machine to be constantly capturing that and then saying that this is going to be the set standard is unlikely to occur. I think, therefore, the study and focus on this particular part of human learning and skills, the non-cognitive part, is going to get very important, because a lot of jobs and a lot of future jobs where human inputs would be needed are going to lie in this one, and therefore we need to focus on it quite a bit. Last thing which I wanted to talk about emotional intelligence is huge value that it has in inspiring people. The fact that if you try and think of your own past, somebody who might have motivated you, somebody who might have brought out the best in you, that's usually an individual who you will remember because of this strong emotional connect that the person had with you. And I think that's fairly important issue in life, because each of us are growing and trying to achieve our best potential, and therefore how human beings are able to influence each other will depend quite a bit on the emotional intelligence and how we use it effectively. So therefore, picking up this very, very important topic and then bringing it to the fore is an important, I think, outcome of this particular conclave. I'm really thankful to the organizers for inviting me to speak here. Thank you very much, and wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manish Kumar, sir. For several years, we have been doing pioneering work in spreading heartfulness practices across various universities and institutions. This journey would not have been complete without the help and the support of the several other collaborators and stakeholders from the field of education. I would now like to share some more testimonials to you, where you would see the various work done by universities at national level. We are very proud to present the testimonials of these two unique universities on this National Education Conclave.
Namaskar. MIT World Peace University congratulates Heartfulness for their event on reimagining university education with a heart-centered approach. We at MIT World Peace University do inculcate value-based education so that we aim at life transformation. Talking about life transformation, our whole approach, philosophy and the system is towards transformation of consciousness, which the Heartfulness also believes in. The very fact that the MIT World Peace University has a faculty of peace studies and offers peace subjects to each and every one of the 15,000 plus students on the campus, be it from engineering or law, medicine, pharmacy, no matter what. We believe in the principle that students must be taught about the peace so that the citizens and practice peace even when they go out to the world. We're also happy that we have been partnering with Heartfulness. They have been associating with us and we have been associating with them for a very long time. Just to give a small example, in the month of March 2019, our students went and spent time at Kanha Ashram. And the next, in June 2019, another set of 86 students did travel there and they spent time there. And come January 2020, nearly 96 faculty members and about hundreds of students did spend a full 1 week there at Kanha Ashram so that they could learn and practice heartfulness to the fullest. I would also take this opportunity to express my heartful thanks to revered Daji, who had been with us through his discourses, enlightening us, our students and our faculty members on several occasions. Just to name a few, he was there with us on Yoga Day or our Silver Jubilee Endowment lectures, or at every phase of our initiatives, Daji was there with us. So we really feel privileged with his blessings. Further, I would also like to mention that these approaches together, our university and Heartfulness, are trying to create a set of humans practicing values and value-based education towards peaceful existence in the world. Further, we also have peace study subjects across the university where after going through those subjects, our students are much more enlightened individuals. We believe in the principles and practice strongly that everyone should be spiritually elevated. With so much of interaction between Heartfulness and MIT World Peace University, we expect that our synergies together would result in a better world. I wish the event a success once again and wish everyone the very best. God bless you all. Thank you.
Good evening. It gives me pleasure to introduce to all of you Professor Ramnath Narayanaswamy, who is a professor of the Economics and Social Sciences discipline of IIM Bangalore. Professor Ramnath Narayanaswamy has been at the forefront of the debate and literature and work in the area of how spirituality can integrate with management science. Today, Professor Ramnath will deliver his keynote address on the topic Pedagogy of Living from the Inside. I invite Professor Ramnath to share his views and enlighten all of us.
Good evening, everybody. First of all, I would like to begin by thanking Shri Kamlesh Patel, fondly known as Daji, for providing me this opportunity, this rare privilege and honor of addressing this august audience. I am indeed thankful to him and grateful to him for having given me this opportunity. I want to begin by quoting the remarks of three masters who come to my mind when I think of education. I've been in education for the better part of my life. I think about 35 years now. And I would like to use this opportunity to share some reflections on these 35 years. Most of my life, I have been a professor in the Indian Institute of Management in Bangalore. And most of these reflections stem from my experience in my own school. I've titled this as The Pedagogy of Living from the Inside. And as I go on, it should become evident why I have titled it the way I have. The first master that I'm reminded of is, of course, Swami Vivekananda. He said two things which have, ever since I read them many years ago, they have been firmly imprinted in my memory. The first is that it's a great privilege to be born into a religion, but it's a great curse to die in one. It's an extraordinary statement, a beautiful statement, and it needs serious attention from educators. The second statement that he made was that education is the manifestation of the perfection already present in man. already present inside you. And this too is an extraordinary statement. It means that there is a living reality. You call that reality consciousness. You call that reality the Holy Spirit. You call that reality Brahman. Or you call that reality the Parabrahman. It does not really matter. But there is a living reality inside us. And this reality transcends the three states of that we pass through almost every day. The waking state, the state of deep sleep, and the dream state. But it is the reality. Reality, as Sri Kamlesh Patel would tell us, and he has conveyed this message many times, is consciousness. And we have to awaken to this consciousness. The second comes from an equally great master, living master, and her name is Mata Amritanandamayi. Amma made a very necessary and desirable distinction between education for a living and education for life. We go through school, college, and university. We acquire doctorates. We go through higher education. We acquire degrees in order to earn a living. But there is another kind of education, and Amma called that education for life. And she said, education for life is really the foundation. The education for a living is a scaffolding. Education for life is about giving you character. Amma also said on another occasion that the major problem in this world is that too many human beings live through their intellects. Very few live in their hearts where we truly belong. The third master that I would like to cite is, of course, my own guru, Sadguru Sri Sharvana Baba. He said the main objective of your life is to protect and uphold righteousness of your lineage, of your traditions, and of your practices, handed down over generations. This knowledge cannot be lost. The objective of this conference is to bring together, put our minds together, our intellects together, our hearts together, to find out what we can do to promote this integration of head and heart into our young adults, into our young children, into our citizens who are going to lead us tomorrow. How do we do this? The importance of residing in the heart, the importance of living from the heart, which is a theme my own guru, Sadguru Sri Sharvana Baba, brings to the fore by reminding us of the critical importance of living from the inside. Living from the inside means living from your heart, to make the heart the center of our universe, to respond from this heart. How do we promote this education? So, broadly speaking, I would humbly suggest that we need in our universities, in our colleges, in our institutes of higher education, to contemplate, design, devise a foundation course that could broadly promote 6 types of intelligence. The first is what I call analytical intelligence. The second, what I would call emotional intelligence. The third, what I would call spiritual intelligence. The fourth, what I would call cultural intelligence. And the fifth, what I would call physical intelligence. You could add on a sixth if you like, which we could broadly refer to as social intelligence. All these intelligences are captured in our Shastras, in our traditions, in our scriptures, in our epics, in our Puranas, in our Itihasas, in such texts as the Yoga Vasishta, the Bhagavad Gita, and several others. What is urgently needed is a concerted attempt to bring this material together in a way where it speaks a modern language and reflects a modern idiom, a modern sensibility that young adults in this country can resonate with, can respond to, can identify themselves with. This, in my humble view, is the key challenge of today. How do we create and empower and ennoble and enable the citizens of our citizens who will play a decisive role in shaping our future? Young adults need to be put through an intensive course which captures these 5 sets of intelligence. These 4 parameters, vision, value, clarity, context, would form the first module of analytical intelligence. The second is, of course, emotional intelligence, by which I mean deconstructing leadership thinking and embedding life skills in young adults. What kind of processes can we offer young adults today that can help them embed life skills, that can help them adopt them as a way of life? That would be the second module. The third module would be spiritual intelligence. By spiritual intelligence, I broadly mean a basic knowledge of our spiritual heritage, the fundamental elements of Sanatana Dharma, otherwise known as the eternal religion, some understanding of the key texts of this Dharma, the critical importance of Satyam and Dharmam, and the critical importance of living a spiritual life. By spiritual life, I mean never abandoning the quest for self-realization, which in our Dharma is the very purpose of our life, is the very purpose for which we come into the world. So that would be the third intelligence, which is spiritual intelligence. The fourth is, of course, physical intelligence. And I don't need to dwell too much on this aspect, principally because it deals with the importance of keeping the body healthy. One doesn't need to spend too much time on emphasizing the critical importance of doing so, because without a healthy body, it's difficult to keep a healthy mind. The fifth is, of course, cultural intelligence, by which I mean Sanskriti, familiarity with the epics, familiarity with the Puranas, the insights that can be drawn, the invaluable and priceless insights that can be drawn from these texts, and how these insights can be contemporized in a modern setting, transmitted and communicated in a modern setting. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would argue that these 5 sets of intelligence, at the very minimum, need to be integrated in what I would call a foundation course that we need in our institutions of higher learning, in our universities, which need to be established, designed, and consolidated on a war footing. We need to bring scholars, intellectuals, educators, and specialists across these domains to come and put their heads together, put their minds together, their intellects together, and our hearts together in designing this audacious enterprise. It is urgently needed. Leadership is about moving away from being smart to becoming wise. Information, they say, is not knowledge. Knowledge, they say, is not wisdom. And wisdom is not wisdom if it doesn't help us, if it doesn't help human beings expand their hearts, make it more inclusive, more expansive, more compassionate, more loving. If we are not able to do this, then that is not wisdom. It's still limited to knowledge. Knowledge is about expanding the heart. It's about making the heart the center of the universe, both the individual universe, the universe of the family, the universe of society, making it central in our lives. I would categorize the practice of yoga, the practice of meditation, the practice of the Guru Shishya Parampara as vital ingredients of spiritual intelligence. So you need to reflect, you need to introspect, you need to develop that part of you which re-examines the ideas and the actions that you embark upon. Are they right? Did I do the right thing? Did my actions serve the common good, or did it violate it? Was my thinking in consonance with my dharma? Was my thinking truthful? Was the line of action that I contemplated in line with both truth and righteousness? It is the reflective capacity that helps you self-correct. And that is why we need to develop that. Yoga, the practice of yoga, there are any number of people infinitely more qualified and competent than I am to speak on why we need to embark in it, embark upon that path. First of all, it is secular. It has nothing to do with religion. So hopefully people find that attractive. Why should you practice yoga? Well, it helps you delve in the inside. It is, of course, known to scholars of yoga, but it is not very well known that yoga, what we understand, generally yoga is equated with the practice of asanas. But asanas consist only 1/8 of yoga. There is an entire array and field and domain of yoga that we need to explore. And if we explore this, it will help us delve on the inside. The Patanjali Sutras that were developed by the sage Patanjali was developed precisely for this purpose, to help people move along the path of self-realization. So, of course, there are many systems and so on. But if we could give young adults a grounding in Raja Yoga, in some of the principles of Raja Yoga, and give them the minimum so that they can use that as a point of departure to strengthen that, deepen that practice as they move along in their lives. Meditation, it is said by our ancients that what we witness with our physical eyes is not reality. This theme is evoked in most of our important scriptures. Reality is actually consciousness. And meditation helps us grasp that truth. When we start its practice, it's unfamiliar to us, so we think it's difficult. But something that is practiced, something useful to us, if we do the requisite sadhana is spiritual practice. If we are able to sustain that practice over a reasonably stable period of time, then it becomes easy to handle, easy to imagine, easy to bring under our control. So the critical importance of meditation, again, is to help us learn to live from the inside, to manage the alleged imperfection of the outside world through the perfection we perceive in the inside. Inside us, there is a reality that is flawless, that is without blemish. We need to experience that truth, not just affirm it through means of intellectual conviction, but actually experience and practice. Yoga helps us experience that truth. Meditation helps us experience that truth. So there is a distinction that I make between the search for knowledge, which refers to the outside world. The outside world is, after all, forms of matter and forms of motion. The study of these forms of motion and matter is what we call science, is a substance of science. But there is another science. It's called the science of the spirit. And this is what we call spiritual science. And spiritual science is like an ocean. It starts like a river, but takes you into an ocean. It is limitless. It has no limit. You cannot reach its depths. And we need to dive into this depth to realize who we really are. And therefore, I am persuaded to the view that spiritual intelligence constitutes the foundation. Life is quintessentially spiritual. And in the world as it is constituted today, it is a difficult truth to communicate. And precisely because it is a challenge, we need to undertake that challenge.
Thank you, Professor Ramnath Narayanaswamy, for your very illuminating words, which I'm sure would have inspired our university youth, faculty, and policy makers. Music is the literature of life, said my colleague Nivedita in today's morning session. It is now time that we make way for some really splendid and soulful music. After a very refreshing session of music today, it is now time to delve into our panel discussion. The theme for today's panel discussion is Nurturing Emotional Intelligence and Life Skills in Universities. It gives us great pleasure and joy to introduce to all of you three of our eminent panelists for today. We have with us Dr. Krish Shankar, who is the Global Human Resource Director of Infosys and also the Honorable President of the National HRD Network. We have with us Shri Sanjay Lalbhai ji, who is the Chairman of Arvind Limited and also the Chancellor of Ahmedabad University. And we are very happy to have with us Dr. Gopal Rao, who is the Director of the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. The panel session of today will be moderated by Tushar Pradhan, who is the Chief Investment Officer of HSBC Asset Management India Private Limited and also a Heartfulness trainer. So without further delay, let us delve deeper into today's panel discussion and enjoy the insights that unfold.
I'm going to quickly introduce the entire panel and then ask some very pointed questions to each of our panelists here. And hopefully we will lead into some very, very interesting topics as this afternoon goes by. My first panelist is Professor V. Gopal Rao. He's currently the director at IIT Delhi. And before joining IIT Delhi as the director in April of 2016, Dr. Rao served as the P.K. Kelkar Chair Professor of Nanotechnology in the Department of Electrical Engineering and at IIT Bombay. Of course, his long list of awards, publications are something I'm sure we all will look up on the internet. But the more important thing is that he was the first elected chairman for the India section of the American Nano Society during 2013 and 2015. So just to give you a little bit of an example of how technology and how all of this is going to eventually shape our world going forward, especially in nanotechnology. So we'd like to hear from him. My next panelist is Dr. Krish Shankar. Krishnamurthy Shankar is an Executive Vice President and the Group Head of Human Resources Development at Infosys. In this role, he is responsible for envisioning the roadmap for HR, driving strategy, and implementing operational priorities aligned with the overall organizational mandate. Krish holds a postgraduate diploma in HR from XLRI Jamshedpur and has served as an executive and has received, an executive certificate in strategy and organization from the Stanford Graduate Business School. Krish is passionate about teaching and exploring new ideas in HR and organization. So I'm sure he's going to lend a lot to this conversation as the corporate side of what we call as the application of education as we see it. And of course, last but not the least, our dear guest, Sanjay Lalbhai. He's I don't know how to describe him, but he is of course a doyen of industry in India, is the chairman and managing director of Arvind Limited. It's a $1.5 billion Indian conglomerate. And it was under his leadership that Arvind has become one of the largest manufacturers of woven textiles in India and one of the largest denim fabric manufacturers in the world. He was also responsible for acquiring India's first denim brand, Flying Machine. I'm sure we are all children of the 80s and we remember how exciting that was as a journey. But he has an interesting new phase to his life. He serves as on the board of several, of course, premier educational and research institutes. He's the president of Ahmedabad Education Society and Ahmedabad University, chairman of Council of Administration of Ahmedabad Textile Industry and Research Association, and a member of the Council of Management of the Physical Research Laboratory. He has, of course, other strategic leaderships in CSR, and he's a trustee of the Sharda Trust. But more importantly, his newest role as Chancellor, and we'd like to talk a little bit about this specialist design institute, which has a very long lineage, but we'd like to hear more about it. So So that's the panel we have here, and it's a very, very exciting prospect for me to take you all through this conversation here today. So let me ask, let's start from school, and let me ask Professor Ram Gopal Rao the first question. We all know that institutes such as the IITs are very, very instrumental in preparing people for their future careers, and we all know that an IIT is an established name in giving all the skills required for people to just come out of it and then just get hired because they are from IIT, right? And it's a global accolade. But apart from the hard skills, which obviously a lot of these students acquire during their stay in the IITs, we also know that today's world actually requires maybe a little bit more. And what I'd like to explore your mind on is to say that, is the university itself responsible for a holistic development of the student, or does the university look at it in any different way than we are? And please feel free to explore this line however much you would want, but would really love to hear your views.
Yeah, thank you. As you said, we do get students with a very high IQ. I mean, that part of it cannot be taken away from them. But the issue is, when they wouldn't have had enough exposure to society when they reach IIT, because almost like 3-4 years, they would be completely immersed in those examinations and the courses and all that. And as a result, we do get students with a lot of IQ, but their emotional EQ point of view, or even their adaptability coefficients on those scores, they are very poor. They one course, if they are not able to do well, and one course if they stand in the bottom half of the class, then it's all gone for them. After that, they get into depression, and then we need huge amount of effort and counseling to bring them back to where they were. And that is the biggest challenge that we are facing right now, and which is indeed a kind of a thing, because I think what was the role of parents earlier is what now the institutions are asked to do that role, or asked to play that role. I think at the homes now, the parents are only pushing them to study, go to this tuition, that tuition, and all of that. The actual parenting is now transferred to academic institutions. Many of them who come to our campuses don't even know what they are good at. They know that they can write an examination and pass the examination and with flying colors, but they don't even know, are they good in music, are they good in dance, are they good in public speaking, what are they good at, they are not even aware of. So when we get all this raw talent, with a high IQ, now the question is, how do you shape them into good human beings who even empathize with people who are around them, because they only know how to compete with each other. They haven't even, they haven't even gone through the phase where they saw somebody suffering and empathize, see what I can do for that person. The selfless service, if I am helping somebody, would that person go ahead of me in the examination? I think, even that selfless service, that empathy, all of these qualities are mostly lacking, in many of them. And now for an institution to start there and then to teach them the life skills and, all of that is becoming more and more challenging.
I think you've just hit the nail on the head, because essentially what even organizations, I'm not even talking about startups, but even organizations are looking for people who will nurture other people, work as part of teams. And especially now with the pandemic, it is even more important to be able to have empathy, because if you don't see the person, how do you express the empathy? On a Zoom call, it is very difficult to even know the person. So I think these are the kind of challenges, and that's why I'll segue into asking Krish, because obviously the output of all of this is coming your way. And essentially, in how IT began in this country, and I am very fondly recalling, the genesis of your Mysore training facility. I was one of those selected fund managers to be able to take a visit once it was inaugurated by your very famous founder. And it was his brainchild. And he was so passionate about this that he was saying, look, you're sending me graduates, but I need to make people out of them. I need to make Infosians out of them. And that was the dream. So over to you, Krish. I mean, I really want to hear from you very open view in terms of, what has changed over time and what are the new challenges you as a very large employer and a responsible proponent of, holistic development of individuals within organizations. What would you like to contribute?
Yeah, thank you, Tushar. I think it's there are a couple of changes. I think if I just take the example of the IT industry has also changed from what it was 10 what it is now and what we see. It's becoming very different, and what we call as this whole digital transformation roadmap is the heart of it. Now, if you look at what are the skills that we need in people, and sometimes the skills that we don't get from our educational institutes, I think I would just classify them into, let's say, two parts. Yeah. Firstly, I think they're all good. Most of our guys are good, as Professor said. They're very good in writing an exam. They're good in studying, good IQ. They're good in writing an exam. But I think what they need to do and what we need to really teach them is finding problems. How do they understand what are the problems? So therefore, this whole thinking has to be a little more broader, little more multidisciplinary, and little more about thinking about what could be the problem. So therefore, this whole problem finding kind of an approach is much more important. So I think while they are given a problem, they're able to solve it. But how are they going to find problems, which needs a little bit of connecting patterns? It needs a little bit of empathy for the customer. It needs a little bit about thinking about it in a much more conceptual way. I think that's one area that I think is something we need to kind of start doing much better as a country. I think the second part is very important, is when they come and work. I think work is always not a bed of roses. Yeah, work needs two key components in any organization. I think the first component is for them to come together as people. I think that's where they need to understand, how do I collaborate better? I think at the base, I've seen these guys are very good. They network and they do it. But it is just that if we can improve that whole focus of collaboration, and we're not collaborating within us, you're collaborating with client teams who are sitting in the US or Europe or Australia or somewhere. So this collaboration, working across cultures, listening, I think that's a very important thing. Listening, building on somebody's ideas and working as a team. So I think that's very important. So this whole thing of a little more building social kind of, the social muscle is more important. I think the third area, which is very important when you go through work, is what I call as this grit. There are lots of words. People call it resilience, grit, or emotion, or whatever, EQ plus, or whatever it is. I think in the end, it's about the ability to manage yourself through ups and downs. Yeah, the ability to manage yourself through problems and crisis. That calls for, firstly, a self-awareness, a little bit of understanding about, what are you, and that is sometimes a bit lacking. Sometimes our people are either they've got blinkers on, or they've not fully understood, themselves. As Professor said, some of them don't even know their strengths, but I think that's very important. A little bit of understanding themselves, understanding, okay, how do I manage stress? How do I manage through tough times? What are the various strategies I need to do? And then work through it. So they're very hardworking, they're very committed. This whole management of emotions under stress, management of, how do I go through these ups and downs and take them all is very important. So I would say, if you were to look back and say, what are some things that we can do in our educational institutes? I think a lot more on some of these lines, getting people to work together in teams, understanding themselves, a little bit of deeper understanding of their own personalities, what are their motives and drivers, doing some projects on their own where they go to a very uncomfortable environment and try and find a problem. Go to a village, go some other, find out what is the problem, talk to people. They may come up with a solution easily, but just this whole idea of thinking about those things is important. So I think those are some of the things that if we can start doing, then I think our people will be world class.
Thanks, Krish. I think there are some fascinating vectors that you just released. I think one of the few things that I can remember is obviously this questioning attitude. Setting the problem is a bigger challenge than answering the question. I think that's a good point you raised. The other thing also you talked about was this new era where we need to work together and essentially try to respond rather than just kind of find an answer. So I think these are some really interesting questions we can come back to. But I want to now move to something really interesting, is to, if we were to give a chance to say, can I reimagine in education? Rather than try to do something from within, can I really revolutionize it in any way? And I think that's where I'd like to bring Sanjay Lalbhai side, because he is probably in a position where he has seen it all, the entire life cycle of an industry, going through various changes, dramatic alterations in the way we work over time, through various political regimes, through various economic regimes. But having now gone through it, so I'd like to ask a question. If you were to go back and say, well, what is the necessary requirement for education today to provide? And if I was in a position to actually be there, to redesign this, will you have some ideas for us?
Sure. I think I have grown up seeing a great institution get built in Ahmedabad. Vikram Sarabhai and Kasturbai Lalbhai, my grandfather, built. IIM, National Institute of Design, and so many higher education institutions in Ahmedabad. And as we know, the IITs and IIMs today, I think if you look at Fortune 500 companies, I mean, it's a very proud moment for India that if you really see that the first choice is leadership coming from India. So I think we have done well, correct? And I think these institutions, and you can see the power of institutions and educational institutions, that what kind of wealth and what kind of knowledge they can create and what kind of leadership they provide. I think the world is changing so rapidly. So I think the next 5 years, the humanity will change and see change, which it has not seen in the last 50 years. So how do we create institutions which can cope with this kind of change? We jokingly say, and we tell our incoming students, where we offer them the foundation course, and we know exactly that these are very bright minds, but they don't know what they want to do in life, correct? Or they've been told what to do in life by their parents, correct? So that's not fair. So we want them to we want to get them on a self-discovery path. And the best thing is to offer them a foundation course. So they get exposed to everything. In our foundation course is the broadest. I mean, you learn every possible discipline in the foundation course. And you have all the options of selecting your major once you've gone through that foundation course. So the first thing what we have done is that we have allowed people to figure out and find as to what is their calling. And that's very important. The second thing, what we are saying is that everything is going to be interdisciplinary. So if you require huge amount of specialization, you need to be very good at something, but you need to also learn how to work with various other brilliant people and co-create. So if you don't have that human angle, if you don't know how to work with people, and specialization does this to you, that you have such high opinion of your knowledge and your discipline that you cease to be a good team player. So this has to be broken, correct? So the foundation course exposes you to all disciplines. It suddenly puts you with so many talented people whose expertise could be from music to economics to politics to science to mathematics to engineering to life science, you know. So you suddenly are exposed to people, and diversity only teaches you how to work with individuals. So this is the other most important thing. So what we want to teach you is how to learn, correct? how to have an open mind. And learning is now not restricted to university or those 5 years when you spend there. Learning is, I'm learning, correct? Learning is a continuous process. So have an open mind, correct? Acquire the ability to learn, correct? Pedagogy will change continuously. And the other most important thing which we have found is that you need to create this virtuous cycle. You need to have the best minds, people who are creating knowledge, correct? They have to teach, as it happens at Harvard or as it happens in even IIT. So that some of the best minds are teaching, correct? And they need then the PhD students and master students to work with them and create research. Education is not about just becoming very good at something, which you will obviously become because you are very bright, correct? I don't think it's a rocket science. But how do you get a holistic view of things? And when you have to take, when you go through this troubled situation, if you have the experience, correct, of going within, even experiencing silence, even your ability to sense the world beyond 5 senses, correct? What is meditation and what is spirituality? It is to experience the world, correct? Can you experience the world beyond 5 senses? And again, it is not a religion. And the difference between spirituality and religion is that religion tells you, its worldview. While spirituality says, don't believe anything, experience it. You are a lab, correct? And you experience the world in your own way. And there is a coach who tells you how to experience that world. So all these things need to be brought onto a campus, correct? No boundaries. From pure science, brilliant mathematics, to spirituality, to material science, to genetics, to nanotechnology. I mean, there are no limits. And then you have to have a Zakir Hussain teaching you, tabla, and you need a brilliant artist teaching you fine arts, correct? I mean, and you should be able to take credits. You may be becoming a mathematician, but you would want to learn how to play guitar, So all these opportunities should be provided. And this is only possible if you have a university and not a place which is offering you specialized education.
I think there is some tremendous value in terms of what you've just given us, and it'll probably take us maybe days to kind of go through all of your ideas. So coming back to Professor Rao, I would like to now, not maybe put him in a spot, but just reimagine saying, okay, these are the needs for the world. And I think Lalbhai Saab actually spoke about the world being a different place. I mean, even the 4 years that someone will spend in a course, by the time he comes out of it, the world is a different world. So what have I trained for? I mean, these are the challenges. And given all of that, I mean, what are your thoughts, sir, in terms of, how do we prepare? Because obviously you can't continue to educate them even after they're out of the 4 years, right? So how are people in institutions like IITs thinking about this problem? And what are your ideas for now?
Yeah, in fact, I don't want to use any future tense because I have been here for over 4.5 years. I don't want to say that this is what we should do. And I will tell you what we have done. In fact, as Sanjay Lalbhai ji said, I think the problem with our institutions has been, they have been very homogeneous. Everybody goes through the same exam. Everybody studies the same kind of a preparation kind of a thing. And finally, they all think alike. That is our biggest challenge. And how do we, so we said at IIT Delhi, when I took over, I said, can we bring these unlike minds together? People who don't think alike, can we bring them together? What are these unlike minds? People with different attitudes. Now, if our faculty and students start interacting with people from the industries, that is what, a completely different way of looking at a problem. So we started these professors of practice positions at IIT Delhi. We started recruiting industry people who have some subject knowledge in the industry as professors of practice. And when I say unlike minds, like you said, what you heard Zakir Hussain at IIT Delhi today, we have Wasifuddin Dagar of the Dagar Gharana offering a course on Introduction to Classical Music. He offers that course to all the students. We are now recruiting more people on those lines. And so, in fact, that entire, the music sort of a thing, Speak Mackey, all of that originated at IIT Delhi. So I think, that is one aspect of Unlike Minds. Attitudes is one part of it, but even the cultures, our institutions not having enough international presence on the campus. Again, these are all global citizens. We are preparing them for the world, not even knowing how other cultures, interact and work is a big bottleneck, or I would say a big drawback for our graduates. And again, to become those idea factories, to become creative, you need to, we need to interact with people who don't think like you, who don't behave like you, who don't even dress like you, who don't talk like you. I think that is what we have tried to do very consciously at IIT Delhi.
How do these things, such as we spoke about, these contemplative practices or self-preparation, things about learning about oneself, how do they help? And would you think it's a challenge to introduce something like this into formal curriculums? Because obviously there's a lot of baggage attached to, even when you utter the word spirituality, it becomes, oh my God, that's not something which, and even the students, I myself have been working with a lot of students and they say, nahi, humko meditation nahi chahiye. Pardon my language, but the fact is that they don't understand what it can do for them. And there is a little bit of a resistance. So if you say that the young people who are the most open-minded, if they themselves have a barrier, how do you see institutions adopting this way where it infuses intuition in people, it infuses creativity, it allows for diversity? All of that is actually happening, right, when you follow a practice like that. But there is resistance. So what would you think is the way that we approach this challenge? Because it's clearly a challenge. And have you faced anything like that in your experience?
Beliefs forced on them. So what we tell people is spirituality is a self-learning journey, and it's an experiment, correct? So, we will, introduce you to how do you go into within yourself and follow this journey. And it is absolutely up to you to say that, and there are no do's and don'ts, correct? So do it at your pace, experience for yourself, and if you feel good about it, continue. And that the new generation is willing to accept, or even the executives are willing to accept. And when you introduce them to a session of meditation, correct? We have seen that there is reasonable amount of openness once you say that there are no do's and don'ts, correct? You don't have to feel guilty if you don't like it. And if you think that you are benefiting by it, correct? Basically, it calms you. Of course, the side effects are very obvious. Any doctor also you will go to, you will say that if you can meditate, be to yourself, and if you can even spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, meditating. And today, everybody, as soon as you talk about stress, because the world is so competitive, everyone wants to win, correct? And they want the tools to manage their stress. And even all medical research, or even their doctors would tell them that meditation will help them, yoga will help them, correct? So I think people generally are not so closed to start or try a meditation technique. And as soon as we say that there are no taboos, there are no gurus, there are, no do's and don'ts, correct? You don't have to give up anything. You don't have to have a belief in anything. It's your own journey. It is your own experience, and you can see it for yourself whether it helps you or not.
But I'd like you, Sir, Professor Rao, to quickly give us maybe a closing statement about what would you like to share with our audience today.
I think, for the current generation and future generation, our academic institutions need to, look at things very differently. I think, like I said, we need to train this generation to be able to ask questions. I think that is very important. And that is where the curriculum, the rote learning, all of these things need to be, rote learning part needs to be going away, and the curriculum part needs to be relooked at to focus more on learning rather than studying and writing exams. That's the first thing. Empathy. I think we need to, expose our students to very diverse set of situations, put them in uncomfortable kind of situations so that they see that, how privileged they are, and they tend to, develop some empathy for people around them, which is very important. And I think use that also to develop solutions to their problems. As an engineer, if I become so, empathetic, and I don't have to become a Gautam Buddha, renounce all my pleasures and go and do that, or I can get so inspired by their problems that I might want to find a solution and which makes their lives better.
Thanks really for this closing statement. And of course, Sanjay bhai, we'd really love to hear from you to kind of give a real, I would say, direction to where education should go. We'd really love to hear your statements.
So, I mean, teaching someone and telling someone, it never works unless they experience things. It's exactly the same thing for spirituality. You can't teach someone spirituality, You can give him a chance to experience it. And then a guy either takes it forward or drops it. So our entire educational system, or our way, is that everything has to be project-based, everything has to be multidisciplinary, and there has to be a reward mechanism of being able to commercialize it or use it in the real world. So that is our idea of offering education to this next generation.
Thanks, Krish. Really was wonderful to hear your comments on the entire spectrum. But as a message, I would really like you to, sum up, of course, whatever you had to say for us, but really from a forward-looking perspective on the whole piece about what education can be and how ready can they get, and even the continuing education that organizations can hope to do. We'd really love to hear your thoughts on that subject.
Thank you, Tushar. As we discussed earlier, the next few years or next decade is going to be a decade of lots of change, much more accelerated change. And I think the only thing that's going to really be with us is our kind of ability to learn. Yeah, I think that is the only way. As Carl Sagan says, the only thing of survival, our only tool of survival, is our ability to learn. That's the only thing. Yeah, and I think that's what we've got to increase. And the need to learn will have to be across all levels, whether you're in a university, whether you're working. I think you've got to keep learning lots of new things. And therefore, that's going to be very, very critical. Now, if I just look at the universities, I think the need to learn really has to, the two parts that we got to really look at. One is, thinking skills at a much more broader level. Yeah. Ability to see patterns, connections, interdisciplinary thinking. That's one part that we got to really look at. The other part is the being, the kind of, in addition to thinking, how can I really get things done? Yeah, which is a lot of social skills and resilience and bit of mindfulness. Just building that emotional quotient and resilience to manage through all this. I think those are very important. And I think this whole education should actually teach us how to kind of find information, connect the patterns, research, and make your case. That's very important. It's not about taking a problem and writing an answer, but really investigating, evaluating, checking, etc. So those are some of the things that we got to really do, because that helps you, that helps your kind of capability to do research, to question. Yeah, and that is the learning thing, and that is the capability of learning is built in you if you do more of that.
Thanks a lot for joining us tonight, today. And of course, in the future, we will continue to engage with organizations such as yourself so that we can take this project forward. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here and a pleasure to meet my co-panelists and all the good work that Heartfulness is doing. So wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, all our panel members, for joining us and presenting your wonderful views and opinions on this National Education Conclave. Now, here I have one more responsibility today to introduce and present to all of you a very, very unique feature which we have just introduced this year on behalf of Heartful Campus. That is the Heartful Campus Awards, national awards, where we got more than 80 nominations all over India. We have 3 category awards, and those categories are the Heartful Professor Award, which will be bestowed upon the Vice Chancellors, the Deans, the Directors, the Trustees, the Founders, and the Management Boards of the universities and institutions all over India. Then there is a second category where we are recognizing Heartful Educators. We have named this award as Heartful Educator Award. This award will go to all the teachers, faculty members, administrative department representatives is eligible for this award. That is Heartful Educator Award. And the third and a very, very special category to all of us is the Heartful Youth Initiative Awards, where we have recognized and we will be awarding some of the youth candidates, that is the representatives from student council members, from various student communities, wellness clubs and alumni. We present our Heartful Campus Awards launched by Heartfulness Institute. Let us start this award ceremony by calling upon the first category winner for this year.
For stellar contribution to a heartful education, the jury is pleased to confer the Heartful Professor Award 2020 upon Dr. B. Vengamma of Shri Venkateshwara Institute of Medical Sciences, SVIMS, Tirupati, Chittoor.
Namaste to everyone. I feel tremendously happy to have contributed to the holistic education and development of the faculty, students and other stakeholders of our SWIMS University by promoting Heartfulness program and initiatives. This award given to me, in fact, reflects the team effort of one and all involved in practicing heart-centered values at SWIMS University. My message to the society is imbibing and practicing heart-centered values is essential for everyone as it facilitates holistic development, holistic education, healthy dietary habits and healthy lifestyle. Thank you.
Wishing Dr. Vengamma even greater success in 2021. For stellar contribution to a heartful education, the jury is pleased to confer the Heartful Professor Award 2020 upon Dr. Kanubhai D. Patel, President, Sarva Vidyalay, Kelavani Mandal and Member, Board of Governor at Kadi Sarva, Vishwavidyalay, Gandhinagar, Gujarat.
નમસ્કાર, કર ભલા હોગા ભલા. હાર્ટફુલ નામ જ એટલું સરસ છે જેમાં હૃદયનો પડઘો બહાર પડી રહ્યો છે અને સર્વ વિદ્યાલય સાથે જ્યારે હાર્ટફુલ જોડાઈ રહ્યું છે ત્યારે આ બેના સંયોગથી સરસ મજાનું રિઝલ્ટ આવવાનું છે. કર ભલા હોગા ભલાનો આખો સિદ્ધાંત કે મંત્ર અમારા પૂજ્ય છગનભાઈ 100 વર્ષ પહેલાં જ્યારે આપેલો ત્યારે એમના હૃદયમાં એવી ઈચ્છા હતી કે સારું કરો, કોઈનું ભલું કરો તો ભલું તો વધારે તમને રિઝલ્ટ આપવાનું છે. અને એ મૂળ આશયથી વિદ્યાર્થીઓમાં સંસ્કાર સાથે શિક્ષણ અપાય એ રીતે સર્વ વિદ્યાલયની સ્થાપના થયેલી અને 100 વર્ષથી એ સતત સ્થાપના કર્યા પછી એ પ્રગતિ ચાલુ જ રહી છે અને સાથે હાર્ટફુલ જોડાઈ રહ્યું છે ત્યારે આપણે એમાં વધારો કરી શકશું. વિદ્યાર્થીઓમાં વેલ્યુ એડેડ એજ્યુકેશન જ્યાં સુધી ન મળે ત્યાં સુધી એજ્યુકેશનની ડિગ્રી લઈને બધા વિદ્યાર્થીઓને આપણે સમાજમાં મોકલવાનો કોઈ અર્થ નથી. વિદ્યાર્થી ગમે તે હોય ડૉક્ટર હોય, એન્જિનિયર હોય, કોઈ પણ મોટી ડિગ્રી મેળવી હોય, પણ એને જો વડીલોને માન આપતા ના આવડતું હોય, એને કોઈ કાઇન્ડ એક્શન કરતા ના આવડતું હોય, તો એ કરેલું એનું નકામું છે. અને દરેક વિદ્યાર્થીઓમાં આપણે એ કાઇન્ડનેસ, એ અનુકંપા, કોઈના તરફની દયા આ આપણે બધામાં રાખી શકીએ. કોઈને પણ હેલ્પફુલ થવાની જે વૃત્તિ દરેકમાં આપણે ડેવલપ કરી શકીએ, તો જ આપણે શિક્ષણ સારી રીતે આપી શકીએ છીએ, એવું અમે પણ માનીએ છીએ, હાર્ટફુલ પણ માને છે. અને આ બે જણના સહયોગથી જે રિઝલ્ટ આવશે તે ખૂબ સારું રિઝલ્ટ આવશે એવી મને આશા છે. આ એવોર્ડ મળી રહ્યો છે એટલે આનંદ તો થાય જ, પણ પોતાના વખાણ અમારે જાતે કરીએ તે અમને પોતાને બહુ ગમતું નથી, પણ છતાં એની ડિસ્ક્રિપ્શનથી કદાચ કોઈને પ્રેરણા મળે એ આશયથી આપણે એનું વર્ણન કરીએ તો અત્યારે સર્વ વિદ્યાલય 54,000 સ્ટુડન્ટ્સને ભણાવી રહ્યું છે. કેજીથી માંડીને છેક PhD સુધી આપણે ત્યાં એ સગવડ છે. 8,500 છોકરા છોકરીઓ આપણી હોસ્ટેલમાં રહે છે અને બધાને વેલ્યુ એડેડ એજ્યુકેશન આપવાનો આપણે પ્રયત્ન કરી રહ્યા છીએ. એમાં સોનામાં સુગંધ ભળે તેમ સર્વ વિદ્યાલયની જોડે હાર્ટફુલ જોડાઈ રહ્યું છે, ત્યારે ખૂબ આનંદ થાય છે. અને આ એવોર્ડથી અમને ખૂબ આનંદ થાય છે. સંસ્થાનો અમે અમારા હૃદયના મળકાથી આભાર માનીએ છીએ. કર ભલા ઓગા ભલા.
Wishing Dr. Kanubhai Patel a greater success in 2021. For stellar contribution to a heartful education, the jury is pleased to confer the Heartful Professor Award 2020 upon Dr. Lakshmi Mohan of the IIM Business School, Kharghar, Navi Mumbai, Raigad.
Pranams to our Divine Master and all my brothers and sisters. Heartfulness has been a great blessing for us at IIM, guiding us through our spiritual journey. In fact, the seeds of heartfulness was sown by Sanjay ji, and it was watered and nourished by Sister Pooja, Brother Singla, we had Dareshwar sir and ma'am, Manish, Darshana, Poonam, Brother Gopal, and so many of them who have actually handheld us through the spiritual journey. I dedicate this award to my colleague Professor Preeti, who is the head of Wellness Center, all the student coordinators, and also the wonderful preceptors of Navi Mumbai. Heartfulness is a marvelous transformation journey, and I think this has also brought in a feeling of oneness among people. Moving from the ego to the ecosystem is what has been propelled by this beautiful movement called Heartfulness. In fact, for IIM, Heartfulness was an impetus for the Wellness Center, and I wish to pledge my devotion to this whole journey brought in by Heartfulness. Thank you so much, Divine Master, and all the preceptors.
Wishing Dr. Lakshmi Mohan an even greater success in 2021. For stellar contribution to a heartful education, the jury is pleased to confer the Heartful Educator Award 2020 upon Dr. T. Kumar of the Delhi Technological University, Delhi.
Namaskar, I am Dr. T. Kumar from Delhi Technological University, Delhi. Involving oneself in HFN activities itself is a reward, and further getting award for doing this noble work is really an amazing and exciting. I express my sincere and heartfelt gratitude for this prestigious award. At this point of time, I wish to thank our University Vice Chancellor, Professor Yogesh Singh, for his wholehearted support to undertake all the activities of heartfulness in our university. These activities brought a lot of balance among the students in this highly competitive world, also able to reduce the gap between the teachers and students by increasing faith, sympathy, compassion, etc., and thereby harmony. I hope the activities of heartfulness further give opportunities and directions to work furthermore for the university and the students. And my best wishes to Heartfulness Institute for their continuous effort in working towards holistic environment in the campus. Thank you.
Wishing Dr. T. Vijayakumar an even greater success in 2021. For stellar contribution to a heartful education, a special jury recognition is conferred upon Vice Chancellors of select universities. Professor Yogesh Singh of the Delhi Technological University, Delhi. Professor Raj Kumar of the Punjab University, Chandigarh.
It gives me immense pleasure to receive this unique Heartfulness Campus Award on behalf of Punjab University that recognizes the great work for youth empowerment and inculcating values on campus. The team comprising various faculty members, scholars and students led by Professor Nandita and Professor Katare have done tremendous work in the last 7 to 8 years for this very different program called Self-Development Program. I am sure it will reach out to each and every student and help transform their personalities and prove to be a game changer for all of us in building a very different image for Punjab University. Thank you.
Wishing all of them an even greater success in 2021. For stellar contribution to a heartful education, the jury is pleased to confer the Heartful Youth Ambassador Award 2020 upon Rahul Warrior, Reshmi Ramakrishnan, Shiv Narayan Ghosh, Romax Rajiv, Omkar Jadhav of the Pillai College of Engineering, New Panvel.
Hello everyone, we are from Tapas PC.
We are very happy and glad to receive this award.
This has added a golden feather to our sincere efforts.
We worked with complete dedication and it bore fruit as many people started meditating regularly.
This would be an encouragement to our juniors as well.
As a faculty coordinator of Tapas, I am very proud of our students. They are really working very hard, constantly and sincerely for this noble cause. We are thankful to our management board, Dr. K.M. Vasudevan Pillai sir, Dr. Daphne ma'am for their encouragement and their blessings. We are also thankful to our principal, Dr. Sandeep Joshi sir, for his constant support.
We are thankful to Heartfulness for this opportunity and grateful to Dr. Nivedita ma'am and Madhura ma'am for supporting us at each and every step.
Thank you for the award.
Wishing each one of them an even greater success in 2021.
So after going through this amazing award ceremony, and you have seen the way this universities, this youth, the faculty members, the vice chancellors, directors and deans, they have contributed by supporting the Heartfulness movement in every university and college. I think it's a tremendous work what they have done. It's a voluntary work what they have showcased from their side, and such a responsible act from these universities. Kudos to all these winners and all these silent volunteers who are trying to make a change in this world with their contribution. We are thankful to them for their contribution and support in Heartfulness movement at university levels. So here we are at the end of the first day of National Education Conclave 2021. Hope to see you all tomorrow again in the morning at 9:30. And I'm definitely sure you must have gained a lot of knowledge today from all these eminent speakers from the field of education. Join me tomorrow again in the morning to listen to some of the more fascinating personalities from the field of education, the luminaries like Dr. Raghunath Mashelkar, AICT Chairman Dr. Anil Sahasrabudhe, and we also have Mr. Kamlesh D. Patel Daji, who is going to give you insights upon why the importance of meditation is needed for the youth. So join me tomorrow at 9:30 for the National Education Conclave 2021. Good night and Shubharatri. See you tomorrow.